The ground under my feet cracked open without warning, and my plow horse screamed as the earth swallowed its front legs. I am Daniel Ashford, and until that morning, I was nothing more than a farmer on the dust world of Kello's Reach, a colony so small that most star maps do not even bother naming it. My family has worked this soil for 3 generations, ever since the Valari Concord allowed humans to settle here as laborers, nothing more. We grow grain for masters who barely look at us. That is the life I knew, until the field split apart beneath me. I pulled the horse free, my hands shaking, my heart pounding against my ribs. I expected a sinkhole, maybe an old irrigation tunnel collapsing. What I found instead was a metal wall, gray and seamless, stretching down into darkness far deeper than any well. I should have called the Valari overseer. That is the law here. Any unusual find on human land must be reported within 1 day, or the family loses their farming rights forever. But something about that metal made me pause. It did not look old and rusted like scrap. It looked like it was sleeping. I climbed down using a rope tied to my plow frame, my boots sliding against smooth metal that hummed faintly, as if it remembered being alive. The tunnel opened into a chamber so large my torchlight could not find the walls. And there, resting in the dark like a giant that had simply lain down to rest, was a shape I recognized from old, forbidden pictures my grandfather once showed me before the Concord banned them. A warship, a human warship, buried under my own wheat field. Faded letters ran along its hull, human letters, in a language older than the one we speak now, but I could still read pieces of it. Solace. That was its name, the Solace. I do not know how long I stood there, torch shaking in my hand, before a soft light flickered along the hull, and a voice spoke. Identification required. State your designation. I nearly dropped the torch. The voice was calm, careful, almost gentle, like a librarian who had been waiting a very long time for someone to walk through the door. Daniel Ashford, I said, my voice cracking. I am a farmer. I found you by accident. Query. Are you affiliated with Fleet Command? I don't know what that is. There was a pause, longer than I expected, as if the ship itself was surprised. Analysis complete. Significant time has passed. Estimated dormancy period, 341 years. 341 years. That was before the Concord ever came to this system, before humans were ever called laborers, before we forgot half of our own history, because the Valari rewrote the parts that made them uncomfortable. I asked the ship what it was doing buried under a farm. It told me its crew had hidden it here during what it called the withdrawal, a moment in history I had never been taught. It said Earth's fleets had once been strong enough to be feared, not pitied, and that something happened, some agreement, some retreat, that caused ships like this one to be scattered and buried across a dozen worlds, waiting for a signal that never came. I climbed back up to the surface that night with more questions than I had ever carried in my life. My sister, Emily, met me at the door, worried because I was gone for hours past sunset. When I told her what I found, she did not believe me until I showed her the strange, warm dust still clinging to my boots. Dust that smelled faintly of ozone. You have to report this, she said. Daniel, if the Valari find out you hid it, they will take everything. The farm, the land, all of it. She was right, and I knew it. But I also knew something else. If I reported it, the ship would not go to me, or to my family, or to anyone like us. It would go into a Valari vault, to be studied and picked apart until it was nothing but scrap metal, and secrets locked away where no human would ever see them again. I went back the next morning before sunrise. Solace, I said, standing before the dark hull. Can you tell me more about the withdrawal? Why did humanity hide? The ship's light flickered, considering. Insufficient authorization for full record access. Command authorization required. I'm not your commander. I'm a farmer. Query. State your family lineage. I did not understand the question at first. But I answered anyway, giving names going back to my great-grandfather, a man named Walter Ashford, who, according to family stories, once served on a ship before the Concorde ever arrived. The chamber went quiet, and then the lights along the hull brightened, one by one, like a heartbeat waking up. Genetic match confirmed. Walter Ashford, former officer, Solace Crew Registry. Direct descendant identified. Command authorization granted to Daniel Ashford. I stumbled back, my torch nearly falling from my hand. My great-grandfather had not just told stories, he had lived them. He had been part of something the Concorde erased so completely that even my own family forgot the truth. Over the following days, I returned again and again, learning pieces of history that made my chest tighten with something between pride and grief. The withdrawal was not a surrender, it was a choice. Human fleets had been powerful enough that other species feared what might happen if that strength continued to grow. Rather than fight a war that would have cost countless lives on both sides, human commanders made an agreement to stand down, to scatter their ships, to let humanity be seen as small and harmless, in exchange for peace. It was not weakness, it was restraint, and the Concorde had spent centuries making sure no human ever learned that truth, teaching us instead that we were simply lesser, simply born to work fields under someone else's sky. I do not know how long I could have kept this secret, but the choice was taken from me on the 5th day, when I saw dust rising on the horizon, the unmistakable shimmer of a Valari patrol skimmer, heading straight for my farm. Emily grabbed my arm at the door. "They know," she said. "Someone must have reported the tremors from the field." I had only seconds to decide. I could hide everything, cover the entrance, deny anything unusual happened, and hope they believed me. Or I could face them, knowing that if the Valari found the ship first, they would take it, and with it, they would take the truth I had only just begun to understand. I ran to the field as the skimmer landed, its doors hissing open. 2 Valari officials stepped out, tall and pale, their eyes sharp with suspicion, along with a translator named Corwin, a human who worked for the Concorde and rarely looked comfortable doing it. "There have been reports of unusual energy readings," the lead official said through Corwin. "This land will be searched immediately." I stood between them and the broken field, my heart hammering, and I did something I never imagined I would do. I told them the truth. "There is something under my farm," I said. "Something old, something human, and it belongs to my family, not to you." The official laughed, a short, cold sound. "Humans do not own warships, farmer. Humans own soil, and only because we allow it." That was the moment I stopped being afraid. I turned and called down into the opening, my voice steady despite the shaking in my hands. "Solace, this is Daniel Ashford. I need you now." For a long moment, nothing happened, and I feared the ship would not answer, that everything I learned in the dark had been a dream born from too little sleep and too much dust. Then the ground trembled, softly at first, then stronger, until the entire field began to rise, soil sliding away like water pouring off a rising whale, revealing the gray hull beneath the morning sun for the first time in over 3 centuries. The Valari officials stumbled back, their earlier confidence gone. Corwin's mouth hung open, his translator device forgotten in his hand. The ship rose fully from the earth, silent and enormous, lights running along its surface, like it was finally taking a full breath after a very long sleep. "Authorization confirmed," the ship said, its voice carrying clearly across the field for everyone to hear. Commander Daniel Ashford recognized. Standing by. I did not ask it to threaten anyone. I did not want violence, and neither, I realized, did the ship. It simply stood there, patient and enormous. A quiet reminder that humanity had never truly been as small as we were taught to believe. The lead Valari official straightened his coat, trying to recover his composure, but his voice had lost its earlier certainty. "This vessel falls under Concorde jurisdiction. It will be surrendered for inspection. No, I said, and for the first time in my life, the word did not feel small coming out of my mouth. It was buried on human land, found by human hands, and claimed through human blood. It stays with me. They argued for a while longer, threats mixed with confusion, but there was little they could do standing beside a fully awakened warship that answered only to me. Eventually they left, promising this was not finished, that higher officials would be informed. I did not doubt them, but for the first time, I was not afraid of what came next. Emily found me standing in the field that evening, staring up at the ship that now cast a long shadow over our old farmhouse. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. I thought about the generations before us, who forgot their own history, who believed the story that humans were simply meant to serve. I thought about my great-grandfather, a man I never truly knew, who once stood on the deck of this very ship. Now, I said, we remember who we really are. The wheat around us swayed gently in the wind, but above it, silent and steady, the Solace waited, ready for whatever came next. And for the first time since I was a boy, I did not feel like a farmer standing in someone else's shadow. I felt like the beginning of something that had been sleeping far too long,